Good morning, everybody. Our last review that we need to do is on ecology. So if you could turn to that section. The good news is I think this is the easiest section that there is. You guys have learned a lot of this all along the time when you were in school. So a lot of it's common sense also. So let's go ahead and start. So one of the first things you have to know is the levels of organization of what ecology covers. So it can cover as something as small as one particular species, all the way up to the biosphere, which is where life can exist. Okay, so let's go over these real quick. A species, you know what that is? That's any group of organisms that can successfully reproduce. So like all the red-breasted robins in a certain area, okay, or all the hammerhead sharks in a specific area. That would be one species, okay? Then the population would be all of those in the area. Community would be, so if we're going to do the shark example, it would be the shark, the jellyfish, the other fish, the tuna, the algae, all living things that are in a certain area. And then ecosystem is the first level that actually includes living and non-living things, so biotic and abiotic. So a lot of ecologists study ecosystems because without all that stuff, you can't really see how a whole system survives, okay? And then a biome is a region of the earth that has certain characteristics, so like a rainforest, an ocean habitat, a desert, there's a whole bunch, tundra, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of biomes. And then, like I said, biosphere is all the regions of Earth where life can exist, okay? All right, so then there's a whole unit on energy flow, which you guys have been doing food webs and food chains for a very long time, probably since third grade. So just remember that an autotroph is anything that can make its own food. So we like to think of these as plants, but that also includes seaweed and algae. Some bacteria can do that, okay? And then the order of how we eat things is primary, secondary, tertiary consumers. So primary consumers are the first organisms to put food in their mouth. So those, in other words, fit here, and those would be your herbivores. Okay, your omnivores can eat both plants and animals, and then your carnivores eat strictly meat. So carnivore is kind of like a weird term because most people think of bears and sharks and tigers and things like that. But remember that a frog is a carnivore, okay? Because it doesn't choose to eat vegetation. It will only eat other animals like bugs and things like that. So that makes him a carnivore, okay? So the one number that you have to remember in biology is 10%. The energy transfer between one level to the next, to the next, to the next is very low. It's only 10%. So that's why you don't see like 20 levels in this pyramid here. Okay, you only see like normally 4 or 5. All right, then other important parts of the ecosystem are scavengers and decomposers. Okay, and then the last little thing on this screen is biological magnification. Just all that is the higher you go up in the food chain, the more poisons there are. Okay, so as an example, DDT is a poison that we spread in the water to kill mosquitoes. So obviously the DDT would be in the water, and then the things that float in the water can get that DDT in them. But then the larger organisms, which eat these, which float in the water, are going to have more poison in them. All right, they also discovered this. It was killing our eagle population back in the 1950s. Because think about the eagles eating the fish that eat the smaller fish that eat the smaller fish that are in the water. Okay, so if it asks you a question about biological magnification, it's probably talking about the largest organisms in the ecosystem. All right, okay, so then let's do these down here on the bottom real quickly. Okay, so the symbiotic relationships that you need to know are these 5 here: mutualism, parasitism, and commensalism. These are pretty easy. Parasite is probably the one you know the most about. This is when one organism benefits and the other one is harmed. And it's usually the host that is harmed. So mosquitoes, ticks, fleas, tapeworms, all of those things fall into the parasite category. Mutualism means they both benefit. That's why we have a plus plus here. And commensalism is the one that it's hardest for kids to remember. It's a +0, which means one is benefited, but the other one is unaffected, right? It doesn't hurt them or help them either. Okay, some examples of those are down here. Mutualism, both species are getting something out of it. The butterfly is probably getting food, and the flower is probably getting pollinated. Parasite, that's the tick on a dog. So the dog is losing blood, but it can also get a disease from that. And then commensalism, an example here is with this whale. The barnacles that are all over the whale, they're getting movement. So every time the whale moves, they get like a free taxi ride, but it doesn't hurt or help the whale that they're on there. Okay, and then the other two up here, competition is when two or more organisms need the same thing at the same time in the same place. So I want you to think of the example of if you've got two birds that live in a tree and they both eat insects out of the tree, then those two species would be competitors. Now, if two birds lived in the tree and one wanted seeds or berries and the other one ate insects, then they are not competitors, okay? They have to want the same thing at the same time. And then the last thing up here, predator-prey, this is when one organism hunts and eats the other. And in case you come across it, this is a predator-prey graph for like a hare and a lynx, which is a rabbit, and sort of like a bobcat. Okay, I want you to notice that as one goes up, the other one goes up. When one goes down, the other one goes down. And it's a little bit of a delay. The predator always falls a little bit behind the prey. Okay, so obviously if there's a lot of hare to be eaten, then a lot of lynx can be supported. If there's not many rabbits, then not many bobcats can survive. Okay, so it's like a cycle and they follow each other. All right, on this page, guys, remember that the carbon cycle and the nitrogen cycle are fair game on the exam. They normally ask like one question about each one, so of course if you get it wrong, it looks like we didn't learn that. The carbon cycle is here on the left. The two main things that drive the carbon cycle are photosynthesis and respiration. So in the picture, you're going to see some plants and you're going to see some animals. Okay, and that cycle was pretty steady until humans realized we can burn fossil fuels. So how that throws the cycle off is it puts more and more carbon dioxide into the air, which increases global warming. Okay, and it also increases acid rain and things like that. And then another thing that we are doing to impact the carbon cycle is deforestation. Right? We're cutting down trees like it's our job. And of course we use the lumber for houses and, you know, different wood things for paper, but we're also clearing the land to make more housing developments or parking lots or malls or whatever. So not only does that decrease the amount of plants that are removing carbon dioxide from the air, it also causes habitat destruction. Okay, all right, now the nitrogen cycle, let me move this over. Okay, when you see the nitrogen cycle, this one's also going to have plants and animals in it. But another key player to the nitrogen cycle is bacteria. So if you see the nitrogen cycle, you'll probably see a plant and an animal, and you'll see the animal peeing or pooping into the ground. Okay, and we have a lot of nitrogen waste in our nitrogen in our waste products. So before the plant can use that again, you have to have bacteria to recycle that. So that is their job. Okay, it turns it into nitrates and nitrites, which the plant can use. So there's that cycle. So something that humans are doing to throw this cycle off is we're using a lot of fertilizers for our farms and things. And then when there is a heavy rain, we have a lot of runoff. And then if that extra nitrogen gets into ponds and lakes and stuff, it can cause an algae bloom, which then can in turn cause a fish kill. So there's a delicate balance for both of these. And unfortunately, humans are the ones that are throwing it off, okay? All right, and then the last section in ecology is on populations. So just remember that currently human population growth is exponential. So we are doubling our numbers every so many years. So it'll look like a J-shaped graph, something like this. Okay, which means our births are way, way, way outweighing our deaths. So, of course, it's causing a strain on our resources, right? We're using more fossil fuels. We're using them way, way, way faster than they can be replenished, right? So, once you have too many organisms in there, a graph is going to reach what we call carrying capacity. So, that just means the amount of organisms an ecosystem can naturally hold. Okay, so you're going to see the graph leveling off like it is in this one. K stands for carrying capacity. All right, so what it might get you to do is read the graph. So like how many organisms can this particular ecosystem hold? So what stops a population from growing exponentially is limiting factors, right? Is there enough food? Is there enough water? Is there enough shelter? Is there enough space for these particular things? Okay. All right, and then a couple other things that could be on there for this are non-native, or I learned it as invasive species. So these are organisms that are not meant to be in a particular area. And the reason they can be harmful is they may not have any natural predators, or they may not have any natural competitors. So then their population can get way out of control. So you know how they're dropping off boas like in the Florida Everglades? And it's a big problem because nothing naturally in the United States eats boas, so they're actually hiring people to hunt them. Kudzu is another example. It's a plant species that's everywhere in North Carolina and nothing eats it, so it kind of takes over. And fire ants actually came over here from Asia. And there's only 2 states right now that don't have fire ants. And they came in the Gulf and they've spread everywhere because fire ants are really hard to control also. And then the last section would be on resources and how we are overusing them. So you guys remember that renewable resources are ones that can be replenished. And just remember that renewable doesn't mean unlimited, okay? And then non-renewable are things you can't generally replace. So think about like your fossil fuels. Yes, they are renewable, but they're considered non-renewable because it takes millions of years for fossil fuels to form. Okay, sun is an example of a renewable one. Water is kind of on the fence. A lot of people call it non-renewable because we have all the water that we're ever going to have. However, we can recycle water also. Okay, but we're overusing them is the main problem, and we're trying to work on ways to sustain them, right? Think about all the options we have. We're working on cars that are electric. We're working on different fuels that are not just gasoline, right? There's like this biodiesel where they use frying grease and different methods like that. Windmills, solar panels, different things like that. So that whole section on resources I feel is common sense, okay? All right, so if you guys could complete the ed puzzles that I have for you and the other assignment to help you review ecology, and if you need me, I need you to email me, okay? Because that's what I'm here for. Thank you. Hope you guys have a great day.